Do, 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 do.
That's singing to one of those things you can't do.
That's not a sung part.
It's a hum.
Jay, it was so little, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who may or may not have watched the hit anime sensation of this summer in the U.S., Suzume is out in theaters currently. As of when we're recording this. I don't know when this is going to go up on the channel.
It might still be out.
Probably pretty quick.
I did. So I actually did. I may have told my stream we were doing this.
No, you told the stream.
I may have spoiled that for the stream. Ooh.
Yeah, so we went and watched Suzume together recently, and holy fucking shit. Like, goddamn. It was so good.
It's pretty good.
I liked it.
So I do want to preface this with the director is Makoto Shinkai, who's done a couple other big name films. So he did Your Name and Weathering with You.
Didn't he also, he wasn't the writer of it, but didn't he also do Silent Voice?
I don't think so. Let me check. He is not listed.
Okay, no, I was wrong about that.
No, he is not listed there. But he's done like 3 of the recent like big 4 anime movies, right? That are unconnected to animes themselves. He's actually done other stuff besides that. It's just those are the big ones, right? That we hear about a lot. We've recently watched A Silent Voice, and we're planning on watching Weathering with You soon.
Yeah.
And Your Name is in the hat to be watched. So Suzume officially came out in Japan in November of 2022, and then it just released into the US just about 3 weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a fantasy animated adventure that's also partially a coming of age story.
Yeah.
And honestly, watch it. But that's my rating for this. This is if I could give something on Mal above a 10 out of 10, I would.
I don't know if I agree, but that's where we diverge.
Yeah, you and I have different opinions on this.
I still think it's good and worth watching.
Yeah, before we get into that, there's an opening song and an ending song for this, as well as music throughout the movie. But the opening song's used throughout the movie periodically. Yeah. Both the opening and ending song are done by Radwimps, I believe. Interestingly enough, I do believe Radwimps also did the soundtrack to Your Name and Weathering with You. So the director and the band have worked together on all 3 of their big name films. And I found both the opening and ending song to be absolutely stunning. They are currently sitting in my playlist like 6 times each. I have like 6 different versions of each one. That's the little thing I hummed at the beginning. It's the beginning of the opening song.
It is a really good... the soundtrack here is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I don't... I'd never heard of Radwimps before these movies. And they are not a new group. They've been around since 2001. But... the sheer complexity of the music design in this movie and the music design inside, the opening and ending song, right, are absolutely stunning. The ending song, the full version of the ending song is actually almost 6.5 minutes long. It's called Kanata Haruka, and it is beautiful. The animation is also stunningly good.
This is about the best you're going to get with... Or it's movie. It's far above what you'd expect out of anime movie quality.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful. Just the use of colors and kind of the way that they do things is absolutely beautiful.
I love that starry night through that doorway. That was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I know, that's so beautiful.
You know what that reminded me of a lot, and I didn't mention it at the time, but I think I messaged you afterwards, is seeing the starry night sky and the field through the thing, and then hearing the story beyond the doorway, and then even the one of the 2 main characters reminded me a lot of Howl's Moving Castle, right? Both the movie and the book, because there's a very similar thing done in Howl's Moving Castle. However, this is in Howl's Moving Castle, it's part of the backstory. Here, it's the plot. Right? The doorways are the plot and that sort of thing, and it is used stunningly well here. But yeah, the name is from the main character Suzume.
Yeah.
But the main characters are Suzume, Munakata, and oh god, what's the name of the little fucking Daijin?
Yeah.
Daijin. He's so cute. Daijin is so
Big
cute.
one again?
Soul Daijin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Soul Daijin.
I never thought I'd see a chase scene between a cat and a chair.
And somehow it was like one of the most amazing cinematic chase scenes I've ever seen in my life.
It was pretty damn good.
It was fucking stunning. It was so good. I mean, I don't necessarily... Okay, so I guess story is where we go next.
This is where we definitely differ. Because otherwise, I'm on the same page as you.
Yeah, like we love
value.
the characters, we love the production value.
Yeah.
Like
we're not splitting this in parts?
Nah.
Okay.
The character design is stunning. Like the art is beautiful. The music is beautiful. I think Nick Nack and me and Vorn have some pretty key differences on how we look at kind of the overall package. I found it to be... I'll start since I actually found it to be like stunningly good. I really found this to be like, it was perfect for me, right? Like, I feel like I got a full, complete story. I was involved at every turn. I knew what I needed to know. And I didn't get bogged down by like unnecessary exposition and things like that. Especially for like a standalone movie. This really felt to me just perfect. I mean, I got emotional. Like, you were looking at the reviews. Apparently people were coming out of this fucking movie crying. I get it.
I saw a review of that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I teared up a few times. Like, I got very upset a few times, and I was, like, on board the whole time. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I think Vorn shares a lot of my sentiments.
Oh, yes. No, I definitely do. But for me, I kind of want a little bit more, like, as in, like, oh, why do the worms this? How are they created? A little bit more on the story between the ant and the fisherman guy you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was pretty much it for me. But no, absolutely amazing. Loved it otherwise. Might be a little bit weird between, like, the college, like, student that's going to turn teacher and the, was it high schooler or middle schooler?
High schooler.
High schooler. Okay. Still a little bit weird. Dynamic, but yeah.
Okay. Why don't you give your thoughts? Because I've got some random production development stuff I want to talk about at the end. So why don't you give your opinions on it?
Before I say anything, let me be clear. I liked the story. I do not hate the story. It's the difference between a 10 out of 10 and a 7 or an 8 out of 10 for me. It was a good story. But I feel like it's carried mostly by its character moments, the metaphorical, like the more metaphorical, the thematic stuff that's going on, the character moments, more than it is the actual overarching story. The actual overarching story for me felt a little bit half explained. Like, you understand a little bit of it. Like, you can kind of understand the basic setup, like 2 stones holding down this worm. But I think the worm is the biggest problem here. Because the worm is the most, I want to say, consistent sort of, not antagonist, but sort of antagonistic force in this all. Across the entire movie. For a while, it's one of the cats, but it becomes the worm as the movie goes on. Like, the worm is what's left. And I think the worm just you never quite got what it was supposed to be, other than this is weird Japanese spirit thing. You could substitute it for... I think it needed to be a little clear on what the worm was supposed to be, at least metaphorically, if not literally.
Yeah, that was my issue as well. It's like, what is this thing exactly? Besides, like, being a force of, like, nature / destruction. So yeah.
I think I didn't necessarily have an issue with that because I just didn't. I'm not sure what about it made me not have an issue with that, but I personally just didn't. I felt like there was enough. I mean, don't get me wrong. Would I like this to be like an anime series? Yes, I think this would make a beautiful anime series. Yeah. Would I have liked this to be a longer movie? Abso-fucking-lutely, I would have liked this to be a longer movie. Am I realistic in realizing that it was not going to be a longer movie and it's likely not going to be an anime series? Yes, I understand that.
I think my problem is if it were just the character moments, if it was just a coming-of-age story, it would have worked perfectly. But like, especially because there's one moment at the end where Suzume sees herself in what's kind of time travel. That part's like, wait, what the hell is going on here? Like, what's...
See, but that's... The same thing happens in both Howl's Moving Castle and Harry Potter movie number 3 and book number 3. So I have experience with that plot point.
But also, like, they kind of explained it as in, like, oh, it is the land of dead. Time is not exactly a thing
linear.
There. Like, linear in the...
It felt a little out of nowhere to me, at least.
That's fair. Like I said, you know what? Maybe it's because this reminded me so much of Howl's Moving Castle, and there was something very similar there, and in Harry Potter number 3. Maybe that helped me, like, subconsciously.
If this were a straight fantasy, or Harry Potter's much longer, so you get a lot more...
Yeah, but it's a very small scene in Harry Potter. I'm only referencing the one scene.
Yeah.
The Time Turner. But the Time Turner is explained almost to an unfortunate level, to the point where it interrupted the rest of the canon in
but
some
in
ways.
Howl's Moving Castle, it's never explained how it happens in Howl's Moving Castle.
So that's where it becomes different for me, because this is distinctly an urban fantasy. Howl's Moving Castle is just fantasy. I can suspend my disbelief a lot more for just a fantasy, whereas an urban fantasy, since it's tying itself down to the real world, I kind of need more of a connecting bridge there to help suspend my disbelief.
I didn't think it was super tied down to the real world because it's post-apocalyptic too.
It never got full post-apocalyptic.
Apparently it is. I
It
was looking it up.
was.
Yeah.
Kind of not. It's like
It's got some
post-disaster.
inspirations.
There's some implication in the worm's world, like the land of the dead.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it quite goes all the way there for
I
me
think
like that.
like the Worms world is kind of like the parallel universes in Fate, right there, where you're kind of put into like a world where like the timeline is revolving around a incident, and that's only that portion timeline that's constantly repeated. So,
Maybe.
Either way, so I've got some notes about the movie itself coming through. So it's currently the 4th highest grossing anime film of all time in Japan and kind of all over.
Yeah.
Like it did great. It's the 4th highest grossing film in 2022, 8th highest of all time, and then 14th highest overall grossing of all time. So it's up there. Like it did great, like right out the box.
In Japan, right?
Yeah. In the U.S., it actually came in right behind Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, but that's because it went up against like a bunch of big name movies the weekend it came out. Like a fair amount of like big name.
This was a very busy movie season.
Yeah, so it wasn't having the best time. Like for example, in South Korea, it released at a different time, and in South Korea, it did way better than it did in like the U.S. Same thing in China. It actually surpassed Your Name to become the highest grossing Japanese film ever released in China within its first 10 days. So obviously, like, the U.S. is the outlier here. It was just up against a lot of other big names.
Well, Japanese movies tend to do better in other Asian markets.
True. A couple things I thought were interesting. So first of all, the while Suzume was always supposed to be the female main character, Shinkai actually went through a couple different ideas for kind of Moonkata's character in the story. And some of the original ideas were possibly another girl. And then Shinkai didn't actually get the idea for it to be Moonkata, but with the chair, until he actually just saw an abandoned chair at a deserted bus stop. And I guess he thought it was like so out of place and foreign that it felt right.
Yeah.
You know? A couple other interesting things. I think you might recognize this imagery.
Yes.
In specific. Vorn, come here.
Is that what he based the...
Not a familiar look. So this is the catamaran Hamayura, or Hamayura. Viewers, you can look this up, but the main inspirations for this film came from the Tohoku earthquakes in 2011, and this was an image that went viral.
That makes a lot of sense.
The earthquakes. Yeah.
There was a huge emphasis on earthquakes and earthquake warnings in the film, so that makes a hell of a lot of sense, actually.
Earthquakes, tsunamis.
Yeah, so that's
Actually, isn't that her birthplace right there?
Yeah. Her birthplace is actually the Tohoku. earthquake and tsunami. That's the point. But yeah, so because each of the big movies, Your Name and Weathering with You, have ideas influenced by major national disasters in Japan. So this one was the Tohoku earthquake. And he wanted to use that as a metaphor, apparently, because he felt like people's memories of the disaster started to become hazy over time. And he wanted to share his memories with teens who are growing up without memories of the earthquake or having no, like, firsthand memories because they were so young. Which is really interesting and meaningful, you know? So I think that's absolutely fascinating. Yeah. Apparently, there's also a lot of inspiration from the sheer amount of like empty and abandoned areas around Japan and mourning deserted places. Because apparently, he traveled around Japan giving talks about his past works, and by that, like seeing all the abandoned areas was inspired to write a story about mourning deserted places. Yeah, which did super big influences in the movie. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. I think it was stunning.
I really like that. The shrine that was under Tokyo.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the actually was from.
Probably it's a reference to the big Kanto earthquake.
Ah.
From a couple hundred years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. What was it? The major. Because I've talked about the specific the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923.
Oof.
So I've talked about this before because it's I brought it up in like I think one of the off the shelves, maybe it might have been the Tamamo no Mai video, but yeah, this was like I think it's one of the biggest earthquakes to kind of hit and be recorded all over, and I think it caused like a bunch of tsunamis and typhoons kind of across. But yeah, like the destruction was massive. Yeah, I want to say there might have been an even earlier one, but I know that's probably at least part of the inspiration, especially with the Great Worm, because they talked about because I know that there was an earlier one, right? Like an earlier Great Kanto one, because Japanese records get kind of hazy at a certain point when you compare them with records from the rest of the world. But geologists and some anthropologists and archaeologists did the math on something, and there are a bunch of California Native American cultures, right, living on the West Coast, who all have a story about like a great flood kind of tsunami event, couple hundred to 1,000 years ago or something like that. I want to say 1400s maybe. And those coincide with reports of an earthquake in Japan on a similar time, meaning that the earthquake that may have happened at that point in Japan was large enough that the tsunamis
all the way in
reached California.
Which would have been devastating to Japan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's where you get like those stone. You know, Japan has those stones. The warning: do not build below this line. Right. For that thing exactly. And those are like 600 years old. So obviously 600 years ago, something happened that people felt the need to put these stones up. And in the little book that they opened that was describing the last great earthquake in Tokyo, in Kanto, that looked like a 14th, 15th century text. It did, right? Yeah, like it looked like a 14th, 15th century text. So I would make an educated guess that that's the reference there.
Although I will say, Suzume is fucking stupid as shit.
Suzume?
Why the freaking heck would you... Is it Suzume or Suzume?
Suzume.
Suzume is stupid shit. Why the heck would you just take something out after you just went through like a weird-ass door?
Okay.
Just saying, why the hell would you?
Yeah, see, okay, so there was also a major Kanto earthquake in 1703, and then apparently there's a massive, here it is, 1293. Okay. There was a massive earthquake between 1060 and 1400, and most documentation points to 1293. So that would make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Time-wise, but yeah.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Yeah. But I totally think that people should go watch this if you have a chance.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth watching.
Especially if it comes to like streaming or some shit.
I think if you can even get into because a huge part of why I think this film works so well is because of its visuals and how beautiful it is. If you can see it on a big screen, you should do it.
Very true. I'm actually going to see it again tomorrow on the big screen.
Nice.
With very good seats. I wanted to show it to one of my friends bad enough that I was like, you know what? I will just go again. Which I have done disturbingly often this movie season. It has absolutely wrecked me.
You saw Lord of the Rings re-released twice. You're seeing Mario twice, right?
Maybe. I've seen it at least once. I saw Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I'm seeing Suzume twice. I'm seeing Spirited Away, the live-action stage version, with you.
Yep.
I'll also be seeing the animated version in fall when it comes back to theaters.
Speaking of, if we're watching that live-action version, maybe...
Then you might get a review for that one, too, coming up on the channel soon.
Yeah, expect some Ghibli stuff on this channel in the future.
Yeah. But with that being said, like, comment, subscribe.
See, you're dying on that one alone.